Hello guys and welcome to a new video. Today it's time for an Arteza review. So Arteza sent me some products to try in exchange for a review. I haven't been paid for this and as always will be giving you my honest feedback on the products. If you happen to want to buy any of these, you can get 10% off using the code rblackwellread1. That's all one word and sorry that my name is so long. This code is good until May the 31st. There are affiliate links in the description box below, which means that if you buy through those links there's no extra cost to you, but I receive a small commission from each sale. So onto the items that I was sent. They sent me 3 products. First up is the set of 4 water brushes. So these are refillable paint brushes, you just put water into the barrel, and they make things much easier when you're painting on the go or for whatever reason if you can't use a water pot and traditional paintbrushes in your workspace. Arteza actually planned to send me a different set of these, but they were out of stock, which works pretty well for me because I already own a set of Arteza water brushes which, as you can probably see, they're pretty well loved, so this gave me a chance to try something different. My old water brushes are also the only Arteza product that I'd used before, so all of this is new to me. There are 2 of the small size in this set, plus 1 medium and 1 large, and you just squeeze the barrel to let the water out whenever you need some. Next up is the set of 48 real brush pens. These are water-based markers with nylon brush tips as opposed to the flexible rubber tips which you sometimes find on other kinds of water-based markers. Apologies for the reflection of my camera, it was really hard to get a good shot of this packaging because it was so shiny, but hopefully you get the idea. These markers come in 4 plastic trays within their box and also include a water brush of their own just in case you didn't already own one. Each pen is labelled with its colour and a number, which is really helpful in the case of swatching, and the colours are also listed on the back of the box. Lastly, they sent me this set of 2 watercolour pads. These are from their premium range like the other 2 products, and each one is A4 size with 32 sheets. I was quite surprised by the size of the paper because as far as I know the US doesn't use A4 paper size generally, but I mean it's a useful size to me so I'm not going to complain. The pages are cold pressed and they have a strong texture. They're also glue bound and acid free, with a promise on Arteza's website that the pages have been buffered with an alkaline reserve which will keep your artwork from fading. I haven't heard of this before and I can't review that aspect because I've only recently completed the artwork, but it'll be interesting to check up on it at a later date and check the validity of that claim. So Arteza is an art supply company based in the US who you've probably heard of because they send out a lot of products for artists on YouTube to try out. Beyond the mention on their watercolour pads, their website doesn't contain any information on light fastness, which is a big priority to me as an artist who creates work with the intention to sell it. When I work on commissions, I'll only use materials that are guaranteed to last without significant fading. So to me these don't seem to be marketed towards professional artists for all that they are labelled premium, because there is no mention of the longevity of them, which is something that's obviously going to be very important for someone who does this as their job. Arteza's prices seem to be on a perpetual sale, so all of these products currently retail on their website for lower than their original stated retail price. Now I must admit to being sceptical about those original prices because I don't recall ever seeing these products for sale at those prices, but the current range that they're in is a pretty good deal for mid-range products and I have no complaints about the price. However, if they were at the higher original prices, I would be doubtful about choosing this brand over a more well-known professional grade one. So I started by swatching the pens on a sheet of the watercolour paper and found that for the most part the colour blended out pretty nicely from the swatches. They all matched the caps well, including the neon pink, which I wasn't expecting to be quite so bright. Some of the paler colours, however, basically weren't usable as paint. They were usable straight from the pen, but when it came to picking up the colour on the brush and laying it down on the paper, it didn't seem to work as well as the stronger colours, so just bear that in mind. I decided for this piece that I was going to try and use the water brushes in several different ways to test their capability and also use a few different things on the paper to test out what it could withstand. I sketched out my illustration in standard HB pencil first. I decided to draw an original character of mine, Kelsa and Ira Kellyan. She is Taran's younger sister and has all of his anger issues but with a lot more control. So think icy cold anger instead of a raging fire. She can be quite scary, but she's not a cruel person, and what I wanted to do here was show her softer side and just give her some space to relax in the forest and give her a little smile on her face and a nice warm sunny atmosphere. So the feeling of this picture, I wanted it to be quite a warm and positive feeling one, which isn't something that I usually convey with Col-Erase. So hopefully I kind of got that feeling across. I wanted it to be quite warm and atmospheric. Also, like I said in my previous video, I'm currently reworking my concept of wood elves, hence the antlers and the flowers, which is something you might not have seen on Col-Erase before. So I'm still playing around with ideas. There might still be aspects that will change, but hopefully soon I'll be able to show you the new designs for Taran and his siblings and so on, and you'll be able to see the finished concepts in a video in the future. Once my sketch was done, I used masking fluid to block off the areas around the image where I didn't want the wash to go over. This is Artco Blue Mask, and I applied it with a silicone tipped brush instead of a normal one because masking fluid has a tendency to just wreck normal brushes. Some papers don't cope well with masking fluid, and it's a quite important part of my process to protect the areas that I want to keep white when I'm painting, so I really wanted to make sure that it worked well with this paper. I had already tested it out on another doodle, so I knew it wouldn't entirely destroy the paper, but I didn't record that part, so I wanted to show you guys here. Then I mixed the colour from the brush pens in a porcelain palette and I picked them up with the water brushes to apply to the paper. You can also use another sheet of paper to swatch the colours and then do it that way. This is the best way to get a pale wash of colour with these pens. The colours they provide are varied but are all quite saturated and do require watering down if you want pastel or less saturated tones, since, like I said, I struggled with the lighter colours. I found that once you tried to use them for a wash or anything that didn't involve just directly using the colour from the pen, they really weren't effective at all. So for parts of it I wet the area I wanted the wash on and then let the colours flow together to create a light base for the rest of my image. I then went back in because I was being indecisive and I added a few more details with a red Col-Erase pencil. This just kind of made the line art stand out a little bit more. I just personally like the effect. It warms up the image a bit because it matches quite well with the reddish tones in the finished piece, and it helped prevent my lines from getting lost while I was painting, which I thought might happen with the HB pencil. After that I continued in the same way, mixing the paint in the palette and picking it up to build up colour. I did notice I had to refill the palette quite frequently with paint to do this, so I'm not sure how long these pens are actually going to last, and again that's something that I can probably let you know at a later date. Once I built up some base colours, I started to add paint directly from the pen before blending it out. You have to work quite fast with this method, or it can be difficult to blend out any hard edges the brush tip left behind, because I found that the paint tended to sink into this paper quite quickly. But this technique built up vibrancy really fast, and I really liked the effect. I noticed that on my initial wash the paper did start to crease a little bit, but as I was building up more layers of colour, the paper surface didn't lift, and I was really pleased with that because obviously that's a big concern. When you're using various different papers, you don't want it to start falling apart when you want to lay down several different layers of paint or any other medium. As I've mentioned, this paper has a very noticeable texture, which may not be everyone's cup of tea, but I really liked it. I thought it complemented the pens well, but I was curious to see how it behaved with fine liners, since these pads say they can be used with mixed media as well as watercolour. I also used a heat gun to dry some of the colours quickly and prevent unwanted watermarks. This obviously curled the paper more. I acknowledged that this was my fault, but I thought it coped pretty well and I tried not to overuse it. Then I removed the masking fluid with a tool called Mask Away that I bought from the SAA. It lifted really easily and didn't damage the paper, so another point for this paper. From there I kept going in directly with the brush tips, sometimes blending out and sometimes using them as they were, because like I said, I wanted to try several different variations with them. These can also be used without water for brush lettering, so that's good news for people who do journaling, etc. But sadly you're not going to get any of that demonstrated here because my handwriting is so bad to the point where sometimes I'll write a note to myself and I look at it the next day and I genuinely have no idea what I was trying to say. I think I was a doctor in a past life. So that doesn't help me with story notes, and yeah, sadly you're not going to get any demonstrations of nice calligraphy on this channel. For the detailing in the background, I entirely used the pen's dry, which resulted in some really nice textures in combination with the existing texture of the paper. Using the brush tips on their side gave some really nice shapes for leaves and tree textures. This is probably the part of the image that I'm the most happy with. I feel that these supplies lend themselves better to background or scenery art than complex character art, but also I could probably try simplifying the way I use them, since sometimes I do still tend to overblend, and I acknowledge that I think I did that on her face. Both the brush pens and the water brushes were really nice to use. I didn't have any problems with leakage from the water brushes, which is an issue that I've had with previous brands, so I was really glad about that. Both types of brushes did lose 1 or 2 hairs during the painting process. Also, the tips on some of the brush pens were inconsistent, with some being longer than others, which meant that it could be hard to work with small details when you have one long brush hair sticking out from the rest. So this is a quality issue that may be frustrating for people who are wanting to work with the narrowest point of the brush tip for very small details. However, for the ones that worked, I really enjoyed adding details, especially the leaves and flowers on Kel's antlers. I did also use them for some aspects of the line art, but I was very careful and used them extremely lightly and sparingly. I know from previous experience, aka a previous drawing I did with these that I messed up, that I can't use these for standard line art. The brush tips are just too broad for me to use. So I used the ice blue colour to deepen some of the shadows on the image and draw in some cooler tones. Then I used deeper blues to complement that, as well as some browns just to outline Kelsaren's hair a little bit. I recently picked up some brown Zig Millennium fineliners in various sizes, so I used those for the smallest details. I really like how they complement the drawing, and I felt that they behaved very well on the paper, which, like I said, I was concerned about, because texture paper and fineliners sometimes don't play well together. It can kind of disrupt the flow of the ink, but in this case I thought that it worked really well. I also added my usual hint of red to the character's cheeks, nose and ears with a Polychromos coloured pencil, and added some jewellery details with a Uni Signo copper gel pen. This was pretty important because Kelsaren and the whole of the Arachelian family have a serious weakness for nice jewellery, so I had to add that in. Finally, I added some white highlights with the Sakura Jelly Roll, which is my favourite pen for finishing touches and again performed very well on this paper. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised with how well these supplies performed. I must admit to being sceptical after seeing Arteza promoted pretty much everywhere over the art section of YouTube, and not really knowing whether they were intended to be professional grade products or student grade or what really. But now I've used them, I'm pretty sure these are intended for beginning artists or those at the midpoint of their journey who are kind of wanting to learn and progress and try different things without spending a fortune. And for this, they're really good value. I think the quality matches the price. If you are wanting something to complete commissions with, or a higher grade product with guaranteed longevity, I would recommend looking into a dedicated brand. But for this, I really think they're fun to experiment with and I genuinely enjoyed working with them. The brush pens blended really nicely. I enjoyed being able to make use of them in a variety of ways as well. They're very versatile tools, and I think they're great for people who might be working on the go or might have a disability or something else that prevents them from working with traditional watercolours. The water brushes felt comfortable to use, which I was concerned about because they're slightly different to my normal ones. They don't have the same rubber grip, but they felt very comfortable to use. They were easy to get the water out, but you didn't get too much at once, so it was a really nice balance with those. So overall, I think these products are worth their current selling price on the website, but I would be sceptical about paying the higher prices listed, especially since, like I said, Arteza don't provide light fastness information. So definitely good for those wanting to experiment, try different things, and people wanting to just get into art at the start of their journey. So for that, I definitely recommend them. At the moment, my mum is currently using these to paint some flowers, but I'll probably try and sneak them back again to try some other illustrations, because I don't like the idea of just being given an art supply, using it once and throwing it aside. So I would like to give you guys an update later on whether I'm still using these and what I think of them at that later point, and maybe like how long they lasted or how long the illustrations that I made with them have lasted. So I'll get back to you guys on that in the future. In the meantime, please do let me know if you have any questions or feedback. I'd really love to hear it. By the way, if you thought the background changed in the middle of this video, you would be correct. I did actually rearrange my two workspaces, so I'm actually recording under the window where my tablet was, and I've got so much more natural light and space now, and I don't know how I didn't think of it earlier. So hopefully you notice the difference, and it does help the quality of my videos, because I just want to keep making good content for you guys and keep improving on it. So thank you so much as always for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!